Welcome and thanks for joining us at the Serve with Purpose podcast. Pull up a chair and sit in as we talk through ideas, challenges, and opportunities shaping our local government communities. We keep it real, focused on leadership, strategy, and practical solutions for the people doing the work every day. I'm Lisa Hagberg, here with my business partner and friend, Ben Kafferlin. Let's dive in. I want to talk a little bit about culture today, and I've been thinking about it so much because yesterday we spent some time in a community helping them kick off a new project, and you asked all the board members the question, what breaks your heart about society, and specifically their society, as we work to provide them good resources to fix some of their issues. So I want to talk to you from our perspective, from the consulting side, about what breaks your heart about society and the work that we're doing now from this end.
Yeah, what a great example. So this week has been exhausting. It's Memorial Day week, actually. And so it was only a 4-day week, but it feels like it was 2 straight weeks of work because we stayed up late. We traveled a lot of miles, about 1,000 miles this week, and touched a lot of communities. And in all of the communities, the thing that broke my heart was the nastiness. It looked like nastiness between board members and a lot of distrust and mean-spirited comments between public and the elected officials that we were dealing with. And that was the thing that really hurts, I think. Because when I asked that question of the board members, they all had fantastic answers.
Like they really did.
Blight and economic development issues and so on and so forth. They had great answers, and that's the kind of stuff that we can take and say, all right, I see your problem. Now we can attach projects to that to help you fix your problem and bring your vision of reality about. But what we can't fix, because this isn't just ideas, is that kind of heartbreaking, mean-spirited distrust between those people. I mean, you do a really admirable job. I don't even know how you have the capacity to deal with as much as you do. Because when you see that kind of thing, you just like love on people and try to bring them to reconciliation, which is awesome.
Thank you.
But I think the difficulty is like the solution for blight. Like there's 50 things in the Rolodex. You can just fire them off, for each of the communities that are suffering with that problem, right? But what's a lot harder to fix is that cultural problem that is actually the root of so much of it.
Yeah. I think that this week was really hard. Of course, the travel can be draining and the preparation for the time that we're going to spend in communities, but the most draining thing is watching that heartbreak of people hurting each other, and so publicly, and so much distrust instead of assuming good intentions about one another. And we're not there for the history of where that's coming from, so there could be some really legitimate reasons. But I think one of the missing pieces for me is those real face-to-face conversations about the things that are burdensome and that the distrust is coming from, because I've seen a lot of social media posts this week about coming from communities and people in them just assuming a lot of bad intent by public officials and staff. And so to be that public about it, I mean, these people are still human beings that have lives and families, and I think that one of the things that I'm always struck by is everybody's really out for the same goal, and we all are trying to build community together, and just the way we each do it looks different. And so I'm really struggling with condemning one another for it looking different from one person to another. Do you have any thoughts about that?
One of the things that you've just reminded me of is this quote that I've brought to several communities, which is something along the lines of the fact that when trust is broken, communication breaks down. And even exact perfectly worded responses, you will read incorrectly. You will interpret wrongly. You will assume bad intent, right?
Mhm.
And, like you and I are so, tight and trusting of each other, for instance, I can say the completely wrong words. I did while we were setting up here. And you understood exactly what I meant and assumed good intent and whatever, even though I used the wrong words. Like, it didn't even make sense. It wasn't even words, it was more like a grunt. But that's not the case in these communities where there's so much distrust. And you see this in any relationship, of course, but it's so poignant when it's in a public forum like what we saw this week. So the question then becomes, well, once the trust has been broken down, what do you do to revive it? And here's the really, really hard part, which I know you witnessed just this week in one of the board members' interactions with you that you had to deal with, which is you need to confront them about it.
Mhm.
Once
Yeah.
the distrust has been sown, like the only way, I think, to actually fix it is to take it to them and say, hey, the trust is broken because you did this. That opens a dialogue. And then you just have to shepherd that relationship well. And that means time, and time means an investment, and it means hard conversation. And of course, we're limited and we're being pulled in a million directions. So if that relationship with a council member, a co-council member, or someone in the public breaks down, the only way to fix it seems to be time,
And hard conversations.
and that's hard. I mean, that's expensive, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about it. I was struck by this so much this week. We've talked about how proximity brings perspective.
Hmm.
So when you go out and see something, a problem, then
Mhm.
you have more perspective on how to fix it. But the truth, that's still truth with relationships.
Hmm.
So you have to spend time with those people in order to rebuild that trust, get their perspective on where they're coming from in life and what their goals are and how to get on the same page. And I think the reason we don't do that is the investment of time and energy.
Yeah.
It's easier to just write something behind a keyboard or, post something on social media
Hmm.
instead of actually investing in people.
Hmm. Yeah. I witnessed you do something this week that I thought was worth telling. So there was a community member in a community that we're working with who was outspoken. She comes to public meetings, lambastes anybody indiscriminately. Is usually misinformed. Is the kind of person that starts asking questions in the meeting rather than stating this is my public common opinion. She's like wanting the back and forth, wants the argument. And you did something that like I like to just debate them, right? Come to the public meeting. I'm a debater. You want to argue? Bring it. And I think I did at the last public meeting with that person. Like,
Mhm.
I just took notes and then was like, wrong, wrong, wrong.
I'm not wired that way at all.
No, you took the much better path, the higher path, the more excellent way. You set up a meeting with her. And I want you to tell us that story, like what goes on in your psyche. Because I mean, to me, I'm like, well, I can't do that for all 20,000 people in this community, so I'm not going to do it for anyone. But you don't have that perspective. Um, you instead invest in love on that people, and I want you to tell that story, how it came about, how the conversation went,
Mhm.
how it changed that person's perspective, and I also want you to tell the story of how the board kind of scoffed at you.
Mhm. Okay. Well, first off, this woman is very outspoken at board meetings, and we haven't seen her there until recently. And so, as she gets up and speaks, she's speaking on behalf of what she says is a group of people. And so, but one thing that I've learned is she doesn't always know how we operate within the system of local government. And so I just felt, then she started asking about financial stuff, about the profit and loss or the revenues and expenditure statement, what it means. And I just decided, I told her that I could give her an hour and try to teach her about some of the finances, what our reporting looks like, why we do what we do. And I was hoping in the midst of that, we could educate her a little bit on what we do, because uh, we had a staff meeting many months ago now, where we had a new employee, and she sat in the staff meeting and said, I didn't know the city had to pay for the pool and the street
Mm-hmm.
lights and the to fix all the roads. And
Right.
she really didn't have an idea of what an all-encompassing work it is to be in local government and a staff member in that
Mm-hmm.
setting. And so I just feel like sometimes the community doesn't know that either. And the clanging cymbal gets the attention,
Mm-hmm.
but I just felt like it would be easier to give her an hour of my time and sit down with her and talk it through. And so we were able to answer a lot of her questions. I think she walked away more enlightened than she had been in the past. And I felt like at the next meeting when she stood up and spoke, it was from a different perspective, even though some of her words were still kind of harsh and
Mm-hmm.
accusatory. It was actually more informed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hoping that as time goes on, that she will continue that education of what we do and how we do it, and that we are really have good intentions for building a beautiful community.
Mm-hmm.
The surprising part was the board
Mm-hmm.
and them saying that I would be wasting my time to spend time with this person. And
And in fact, didn't one of them say, we pay your hourly rate too high to invest in that person?
yeah, yeah. And I feel like that's the work that we're supposed to be doing in this role,
Mm-hmm.
is caring for community in a really big way. And so um, I just realized that sometimes, other people don't see you for the gifts that you have and what the legacy benefit could be of just spending an hour with someone.
Yeah.
So I kind of ignored it, but
Well, I've been thinking about that since you told me that about an hour ago. And here's my response to that board member.
mm-hmm,
Before you had that meeting, that person would spend the full 5 minutes of the public comment period. It's only 5 minutes, but you think about the 10 staff people, 7 board members, and how many people in the public had to sit there and listen to those uninformed, dumb, accusatory comments. Add all that time up, it's a lot more than an hour.
that's true. And we're probably paying all those people
Exactly.
compensation a lot more than my
Exactly.
hour.
Exactly. So that's what
So,
I'm saying. So if you're looking at it as a pure profit and loss kind of
mm-hmm,
standpoint, the cost benefit analysis probably says
mm-hmm,
if I deal with that person in a loving way, it will actually save money, so to
mm-hmm.
speak.
I
Um,
didn't think about it in a financial perspective. I only thought about it in, um, educational and healing.
yeah.
But that's a really good point.
The other thing is you have no idea how much that person went to the YMCA after that and, went to the gym or wherever and, you know, before that conversation may have been complaining, continuing this like narrative, this festering narrative of negativity
Mm-hmm.
that you might have just diffused. So I think there's probably a lot to. You're convincing me, I suppose, although it's hard for me. That it's worth the time to spend with the squeaky wheel, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So
You do that really well. I think sometimes you're more on the internal side with the board members and taking care of their needs and helping them gain perspective rather than the community members. And I feel like that's my bent. It's something that I'm good at. So
mhm.
that's why we make a really good partnership.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's really important that people in the community are heard as well. So that
Mhm.
has always been something that's important to me. We heard that in the first podcast where sitting down with someone over a hot beverage or a bottle of water can really diffuse a situation, but really it is, you know, you get more with honey than you do vinegar.
Mhm.
And I just think there's so much positive that people can bring. And the person that's coming to the meetings is showing interest, and you never know where you might need them to volunteer, step in.
Hmm.
And as they learn more, they might be more willing. And with volunteerism being such a problem in communities, it's a way to help grow that as well, I think.
Yeah. So another good point is that those people that come to the meetings and are the most vocal are probably going to be the ones that are first to apply to be on the board when there's a vacancy or run and have like a single issue that they're going to try to advance. And then they get in there and realize that, and this is one shocking, another community that we were at, like the board was almost completely new.
Yes.
And I think we really opened their eyes to the breadth of what local government has to deal with. And there was some, you know, uh, eye opening
Yes,
that
definitely.
happened. Visibly, you could see the shock of like, what did I get myself into?
Mm-hmm.
And my point is, if those people had some time with maybe the manager or a previous council president or something to understand what's going on, then maybe they would not have run, or if they did, they would have been making a much more informed decision
Mm-hmm.
as to why they're serving on the board. So, I think there's just so many ways in which we're going back to this theme of invest in relationship with the people that are hard to deal with, because that will save you, or it'll be a good investment of your time, basically.
Yeah. I want to encourage our listeners to have an open door policy. You can't allow people to monopolize your time, because you do have real work to do too to help operate a community, whether it's from an elected official standpoint or from a staff member. But it is really important to hear what your community members have to say and to help educate them on the work that you do and why you do it, because there is a lot of times they want you to fix something that you're not responsible for and don't have the resources or the bandwidth to
Hmm.
tackle, at least on your own as a sole community. Sometimes it takes the orchestration of many organizations to tackle hard problems. So I just want to encourage you to be open to the public and what they have to say. They may not be right, but they want to feel heard, and sometimes it can really help your community be on a healing journey.
One of the things that I did appreciate with how you dealt with that person, by the way, was the time block. You were
Mm-hmm.
clear. I have 1 hour. The other thing was you did all your other work first. So I don't remember the exact time of the meeting, but I am saying that I think you can intentionally build in margin for stuff like that, and should. That's something I'm terrible at. I tend to schedule my entire week, know exactly what I intend to be doing, all the tasks that I need to do, and I build in no margin for errors when I mess up, for errors when somebody else doesn't get the work done. And then I find myself burning out, and I have no margin to like love people like that. And so I think there's there's a balance there. Like you're right, they can't just like there should not be an expectation when you say open door policy that they just get to come in whenever they want and waste your time.
Right.
Open door policy should mean I am willing to schedule a meeting and open my door, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and have it in certain time blocks. One of the other things you did last year, I thought that was so helpful, is this community that we're working with on consolidation. You had a consolidationist brewing weekly time at a local brewery, or sorry, no, not the brewery, at a coffee shop.
Coffee shop. Yeah.
Should have been at a
Yeah.
brewery. Should have been in
I
the
would have got more
Yeah,
attendance.
definitely should have been in the evening at a brewery rather than the morning at a coffee shop. But either way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that was dedicated time used and efficient, right? Because you're going to invite everybody in the community with problems to come at the same time, the same place, and have that kind of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we only had like 3 to 6 people, probably max, at
Yeah.
any given time, so it was very manageable. But that was another way in which like you're protecting your time, but
Mm-hmm.
you're also still giving people access and able to hear their concerns and love on them well.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable to spend time in community like that, like coffee with the cops and
Hmm.
just the tea with the manager. just those little things can really build community, and I think they're really important. Sometimes people are not willing to come stand up in a meeting, and I can certainly appreciate that too,
Hmm.
but they do have something they want to say, or they feel a way about something that's going on in the community. And so I think those things are really important. They aren't always well attended, so I think we give up on them too early. So, but I think trying them and seeing what happens, and at least you get to sit in a coffee shop for an hour with your own cup of tea if no one comes.
Right. Well,
I
good.
think those are good things to share with people to do in their own communities. Thank you.
Good reminder. So build margin into your schedule.
Yep.
Meet with the squeaky wheel.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
I think scheduling it is really important. So yes, meet with them, but do it by a schedule rather than them just walking in.
Cool.
So thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you on the next episode.
We appreciate you listening today, but we can't let you go without a quick disclaimer. The ideas shared here reflect our experience working with communities and local governments like yours. However, we're not your solicitor, your auditor, or your therapist, so this podcast should not be considered legal, financial, or professional advice. If you enjoyed the conversation, we hope you'll subscribe and join us again for the next episode.